To understand the no, you have to understand the yes that came before it. Evan Thomas Spiegel was born in June 1990 in Los Angeles. His father, Johnny, was a partner at the powerhouse law firm Munger, Tolles & Olson. His mother, Melissa, was a Harvard-trained tax attorney. This was not a garage startup story. This was Pacific Palisades, private schools, a BMW at 16, and a family so wealthy that when Evan wanted to attend the Crossroads School, tuition of over $30,000 a year was simply written into the routine. In 2010, at Stanford University, Spiegel walked into a fraternity house called Kappa Sigma and met two people who would change his life. Bobby Murphy, a soft-spoken math and computer science major from Berkeley, and Reggie Brown, a fellow Kappa Sigma pledge with an idea that made Spiegel sit straight up. Brown said, and this line is now legendary in tech circles, "I wish these photos I am sending this girl would disappear." That was it. That was the entire concept. Spiegel would later say in a Stanford startup school lecture in 2013 that he thought it was the best idea he had ever heard. Within days, Brown, Spiegel, and Murphy were coding a prototype in Spiegel's father's living room. They called it Peekaboo. It launched in July 2011. In 2 months, it had 127 users, total, 127. Then Reggie Brown got pushed out. In a series of tense phone calls, Spiegel and Murphy cut him from the company entirely. Brown would later sue and settle for $157 million in September 2014. But in that summer of 2011, he walked away with nothing. And Spiegel at 21 had just learned the first lesson of ruthless capitalism. Sentimentality is expensive. By late 2012, the rebranded Snapchat was doing 50 million snaps a day. By the summer of 2013, 1 billion snaps a day. Teenagers had made it a phenomenon. Parents had no idea what it was. And that combination is exactly what caught the attention of the two men who would show up on Spiegel's doorstep with checkbooks. But before we get to the offers, plant this in your mind. We will come back to the phone call that would change everything. A phone call placed not by Zuckerberg, not by Google, but by a 20-year-old woman from Calabasas. Stay with me. November 2012. Mark Zuckerberg sends a personal email to Evan Spiegel. He wants to meet. Spiegel, according to reporting by Forbes and later confirmed in the book How to Turn Down $1 Billion by Billy Gallagher, is stunned but plays it cool. Writes back and suggests Zuckerberg fly to Los Angeles. This is bold, bordering on disrespectful. Founders fly to Menlo Park to see Zuckerberg, not the other way around. Zuckerberg agrees. He flies to LA. The meeting takes place in a rented apartment because Snapchat's actual office was a small bungalow with a picture of a ghost taped to the door. Zuckerberg opens with a demonstration. He unveils a new Facebook product called Poke. Same disappearing message concept, same interface. And Zuckerberg allegedly tells Spiegel in that famously flat delivery that Poke will launch in a matter of weeks and that Spiegel should consider his options carefully. Poke launched on December 21, 2012. By January, it had fallen out of the top 30 free apps in the App Store. It was a public humiliation for Facebook, and it emboldened Evan Spiegel in a way that would define everything that came after. Then came 2013. Snapchat closed an $80 million Series B in June at a valuation of $800 million, then a valuation of $2 billion, and in the fall of 2013 the acquisition offer landed. $3 billion in cash from Facebook. Spiegel said no. Within weeks, Google reportedly countered with a $4 billion cash offer. Spiegel said no again. Let me put this in perspective. Snapchat in 2013 had zero revenue, not low revenue. Zero. No ads, no premium tier. No subscription, nothing. It had roughly 30 employees, most of them making below-market salaries, working out of a house with sand tracked on the floor from Venice Beach. And a 23-year-old CEO was turning down a payout that would have made him and Bobby Murphy each approximately $750 million richer overnight. The Silicon Valley establishment reacted with something between disbelief and rage. Bloomberg ran the story. TechCrunch called it either genius or generational hubris. Investors quietly told reporters they thought Spiegel had made the single worst decision in modern startup history. Mark Andreessen, who had passed on investing in Snapchat, was reportedly relieved. If this story is gripping you, save this video. You will want to come back to what happens next, because the years between 2013 and 2017 are where Spiegel either becomes a legend or a cautionary tale, and there is not much space in between. Spiegel's private reasoning, according to interviews he gave to Forbes in 2014 and the Wall Street Journal in 2015, was simple. He believed Snapchat was building an entirely new mode of communication. Not a feature, not a product, a category. Selling to Google or Facebook, he said, would be like Instagram founder Kevin Systrom selling to Facebook in 2012 for $1 billion, a deal that in hindsight looked catastrophic for Systrom given what Instagram was worth just 3 years later. Spiegel was betting his 20s, his fortune, and his co-founder's fortune on a single conviction: that Snapchat could go public and be worth 10 times what Google was offering. That was the plan. Then Mark Zuckerberg made his move. August 2, 2016. Instagram launches a feature called Stories, vertical video, full screen, disappears in 24 hours, filters, stickers, and even Kevin Systrom, Instagram's CEO, told Bloomberg openly at launch, "They deserve all the credit." He meant Snapchat. He meant that Instagram had lifted the format wholesale. Systrom said it out loud because there was no denying it. Facebook, having failed to buy Snapchat for $3 billion, having failed to kill it with Poke, was now going to clone it inside a platform with over 500 million users. Snapchat at that moment had roughly 150 million daily active users. Instagram had triple that reach. For 6 months, Snapchat's growth held. Then it began to slow. In March 2017, Snap Inc. went public on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker Snap. The IPO was priced at $17 a share. On the first day of trading, March 2, 2017, the stock closed at $24.48, valuing the company at just under $34 billion. Spiegel's personal stake was worth roughly $5.5 billion on paper. At 26 years old, he had officially made the right call. The $3 billion no had turned into a $5 billion yes. He and Miranda Kerr, the Australian supermodel he had married the same year, were tabloid royalty. He was briefly the youngest self-made billionaire in America, and then it started falling apart. By the summer of 2017, Instagram Stories had 250 million daily users, more than all of Snapchat combined. Snap's stock, which had traded as high as $29 in its opening week, dropped below the IPO price of $17. By August, it was under $12. Then came the redesign. In late 2017, Spiegel personally championed a full overhaul of the Snapchat app. The redesign separated content from friends and reorganized the feed in ways that infuriated the user base. Petitions circulated. Over 1.2 million users signed a change.org demand to reverse it. And on February 22, 2018, 20-year-old Kylie Jenner sent a tweet. Just 29 words. "Sue, does anyone else not open Snapchat anymore? Or is it just me? This is so sad." That day, Snap's stock fell 6.1%. Approximately $1.3 billion in market cap erased by a single tweet from a college-age reality TV star. Rihanna followed with her own criticism weeks later over a tone-deaf ad. The stock kept falling. By December 2018, Snap was trading at $4.99, down more than 70% from IPO. Spiegel's paper fortune had been slashed by billions. Executives were fleeing. The CFO left. The head of engineering left. The chief strategy officer left. Analysts openly asked whether Snap would exist in 3 years. At the annual shareholder meeting in 2018, Spiegel took a symbolic salary of $1. Compensation total for the year once you strip out stock grants: nothing. The founder was betting on himself again, and this time from a position of collapse rather than power. Every investor who had said no to the $3 billion sale in 2013 now had a very cold answer to a very simple question. Was Spiegel a genius, or was he the man who fumbled the greatest exit in tech history? Here is where the story turns in a way almost nobody predicted. Starting in 2019, Snap did something Silicon Valley rarely rewards. It stopped chasing Instagram and doubled down on things Instagram could not copy. Bitmoji. Discover partnerships with major media brands, Snap Map, and crucially an augmented reality platform called Lens Studio that by 2020 had over 1 million creators building AR effects. In the second quarter of 2020, Snap posted revenue of $454 million, up 17% year over year. Daily active users hit 238 million. The stock, which had bottomed near $5, began climbing. It hit $20, then $30. Then in September 2021, it peaked at $83.10, valuing Snap at over $130 billion. Spiegel's personal net worth briefly crossed $13 billion. Forbes ranked him among the richest self-made people under 40 in the world. Which brings us to the real twist, the one nobody saw coming, because Snap's story does not end at the peak. In 2022, after Apple changed its iOS privacy rules to give users the choice to block ad tracking, Snap's advertising revenue collapsed. The stock crashed from over $80 to under $10 in 12 months. In August 2022, Spiegel announced layoffs of roughly 20% of Snap's workforce, over 1,200 employees. By 2024, Snap was still trading around $10 to $15 a share, worth roughly $20 billion. Do the math. Google in 2013 offered $4 billion. 10 years later, Snap was worth 5 times that, sometimes 10 times that, and briefly 30 times that. By pure dollar count, Spiegel was right. But adjusted for the personal cost, the near-death moments, the two collapses, and the fact that Snap has still never posted a full year of profit in its entire history as a public company, the answer to whether the no was worth it becomes genuinely unclear. Here is the twist. In interviews with the Wall Street Journal in 2022 and Time magazine in 2023, Spiegel was asked point-blank whether he would take that $3 billion Google offer today if he could go back in time. He would not say yes. He would not say no. What he said instead was this: "The lesson is not about the money. The lesson is that if you sell, you never find out what you could have built." That sentence is why he said no in 2013. Not for the money. Not even for the valuation. But because Evan Spiegel understood something at 23 that most founders never learn. That selling ends the story. And endings, however lucrative, are not what he wanted. Reggie Brown, cut out for $0, walked away with $157 million. Bobby Murphy, still Snap's CTO, is worth roughly $3 billion. And Evan Spiegel, the kid who said no to Zuckerberg, no to Google, no to safety, is still there, still fighting. Still betting that the story is not over. CTA 1200-1245. If this story pulled you in, do one thing. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. A new money story every week. Frauds, fortunes, founders, empires that rose and empires that vanished. Drop in the comments, if you were 23 and Google put $3 billion cash on the table, would you have said yes? Be honest. Outro 12-45-14-30. The lasting legacy of Evan Spiegel's no is not the money he made or almost lost. It is that he changed the calculation for every founder that came after him. Before 2013, the exit was the goal. You built to be bought. Spiegel proved that a founder could reject the offer, ride the wave, crash, come back, crash again, and still be in the chair a decade later. Whether you call that genius or stubbornness depends entirely on when you take the snapshot. But here is the deeper lesson. Every empire built on a single feature is one clone away from disaster. Snap survived because Spiegel eventually stopped fighting on Instagram's terms and built things no one could copy. Zuckerberg cloned the feature. He could not clone the founder. If this one gripped you, my next video is going to stun you. It is the story of Kevin Systrom, the man who built Instagram, sold to Facebook for $1 billion, watched Zuckerberg turn it into a $100 billion machine, then quit in silence and walked away from the greatest revenue engine in social media history. Why he left, what Zuckerberg said in that final meeting, and the number that made Systrom finally break. Coming next week. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical. And never assume the founder in the hoodie does not know exactly what he is doing. In 2013, a 23-year-old Stanford dropout named Evan Spiegel turned down a $3 billion cash offer from Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook to buy Snapchat. Weeks later, Google reportedly countered with $4 billion. Spiegel said no again. At the time, Snapchat had zero revenue, no business model, and a bungalow office in Venice Beach. Silicon Valley called him insane. Investors quietly said he had made the single worst decision in modern startup history. This is the full inside story of how that no played out, from the Kappa Sigma fraternity idea that started it all, to co-founder Reggie Brown's $157 million lawsuit settlement in 2014, to the March 2017 IPO that valued Snap Inc. at nearly $34 billion, to Instagram's cloning of stories in August 2016, and the single Kylie Jenner tweet in February 2018 that wiped out $1.3 billion in market cap in one day. Timestamps 0000, the $3 billion no one saw coming 01, 00 the Stanford bungalow beginning 03, 00 Zuckerberg's offer, Google's counter 06, 30 Instagram stories and the collapse 09, 30 the comeback nobody predicted 12, 00 what Spiegel says now a true business story from WealthLogic, a new money story every week.